Three Jews, one Google Hangout podcast, 3 a.m. in the morning on the East Coast. This is the Morning Kvetch. Welcome, Duvid's roommate and Levi Shoshan. Good having you with us.
Hello.
Sorry, I accidentally had the YouTube link going.
Yeah, it's all good. Don't worry about it. So we were talking about the plan, like to turn Puerto Rico into a Moldbugian fantasy or something like that. Say what you were saying.
Yeah, so there's this organization called the Startup Societies Foundation, and they, under the guise of disaster relief and green development and all these nice sounding things, are trying to turn hurricane ravaged Puerto Rico into like an NRX like super experiment. And I just heard about this like
Can
today.
you sum up like a bit of how this might work out?
No. I mean, I don't really know much, but but I guess like they're using like these ideas of cities like Dubai and even like Celebration and Disney and Shenzhen and all these places that are like essentially like the laying the foundation of like what could be accomplished on a larger scale outside of like, you know, a smaller community like that. It seems pretty legit.
So what are we talking about? A hyper tiered society?
Yeah.
Oh God, I hate this. I hate this nonsense, quite frankly. But go ahead. Sorry.
Well, I think so, and I think they're like, you know.
I mean, it might be the only option, but I don't like Elysium. I think that it's a nauseating prospect, and I think that it spits in the face of everything that I oppose as someone who is in favor of people having roots in the soil, rulers having faith people having faith in their ruler, and ruler being there to protect their people and being accountable, having skin in the game, noblesse oblige, etc. But that's just my take. Go ahead, Duvid's roommate.
Well, I think the idea is that they're gonna like, you know, they want to turn every city in the world into a place like Hong Kong or something, you know, or you know.
But isn't Hong Kong an IQ shredder though?
I don't know. I can't answer to that.
You know what an IQ shredder is?
It's like a place where the IQs are dropping, I'd imagine.
No. It's a place where basically there's brain drain, or there's consolidation of intelligent people drawn in all to this one place. Then the people go there and they have, you know, one kid, no kids, barely two kids, but usually 0 kids or 1 kid. And just because the city they live in is so expensive, and cultural mores, and, you know, because people are focused on their career and focused on getting money and whatnot. So and secularism and rootless cosmopolitanism as opposed to rooted cosmopolitanism really it comes into play here, and it's quite tragic. So you'll have these big cities, a lot of them in East Asia, but you have a lot of them in America as well, places like New York City. People come here to basically truncate their genetic lineage and be the cog in some big corporate machine. It's quite tragic.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, I feel like East Asians are like, they're better equipped to like handle like that population density. Like I feel like,
but it also I just want to say it also deprives the communities that the brain drain is coming from, even within a country or in the context of a global society from within the world. Basically, it's a lose-lose for everyone except the corporate masters who get to employ all the best people from around the world at very low cost, because there's a very wide labor market pool.
And it's also like it's like, if imagine like the average IQ of a city is like super high because you have like these 130, 140 IQ people living there. And so if your IQ is still like way above average, like say it's like 120, but compared to the other city residents, it's like low. It's almost like a deflation, like it has like a deflationary sort of effect on your intelligence.
Well, what do you think about like the future kind of being this, like the idea of like just like the Tesla city, like as being like there'll be Tesla cities all over the world, like that's what it's going to end up becoming.
Yeah, I know. Like, isn't the United Arab Emirates like attempting something like that? I don't know. I think it's
what's a Tesla city? Like, oh God, what is this? What's a Tesla?
No, it's like a startup city. It's like a kit, pretty much.
Yeah.
It's like a city that you build out of a kit. Yeah, it's like
this is just some West Coast. This is just some West Coast capitalist nouveau riche bullshit. Honestly, what I'm hearing.
I mean, it sounds cool in principle, like because you could design.
Maybe to you because you're fucking gay.
Well,
No,
I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. Go ahead.
It's
No,
like
I know.
there is this like deep connection with like NRX stuff and the people like who are proponents of this. You know, it's definitely like coming from that accelerationist kind of uh mindset, I would say.
I just feel like
Certainly. I mean, I
that stuff
think
is
it's funny
always,
though
like,
that the NRX people completely bastardize the way that, let's say, Hindus or perennialists use the concept of the Brahmin, and they turn it into this purely kind of monetary, horrendous kind of like
Yeah.
IQ status nouveau riche thing. It's like a Luke Ford wet dream, you know? I
Yeah,
think it's
but
a shame. Although that's just one segment of NRX, and there are a lot of segments of NRX, like the more religious segments. I was just talking about Radish Mag, Karlef, Bodell. We were talking about Nick Land. Like there are segments of NRX that I really like. I like Mark Citadel, but at the same time, it's like there are also really repugnant sort of techno-futurist, materialistic sort of strains that I don't personally enjoy for my own reasons. I just think it's antithetical to what I think is conducive to a moral or pleasant society. And yes, perhaps I'm biased because maybe although I might be moderately intelligent and I might be moderately able to just due to the be comfortable due to the context of where I was born, maybe I wouldn't be in that top 1% in the tiered city. So maybe that's just me being jealous because I wouldn't make it to Elysium. But quite frankly, regardless of whether I did or didn't, I wouldn't want to be on Elysium because I'd want to be on Earth connected to my people. I don't want to be an elite or a leader or a ruler. I want to have an elite or a ruler govern me effectively, but I want to be part of a larger organism or a societal organism. It's this kind of Spenglerian concept, it's all, and it's also just makes sense. I mean, like everyone, a society is like an organism. A civilization, it lives, it dies, but it also, it has different kind of like components to it, like that each serve their own function and are each equally important. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, Levi. Go ahead.
Oh no, I wasn't going to say anything.
Yeah, I was just saying, yeah. But I'm curious to hear talk more about this idea of Duvids. I didn't mean to like neg on you too much if you support this kind of stuff because I kind of
no, I don't really.
I don't know.
I don't.
No, Duvid's roommate.
Yeah, I can't say no, I don't necessarily support it, but it's like but I do think it's like I do like the concept of like speeding up the process of capitalism into hyperspeed until it inevitably collapses, because like how else are you going to see an end to not that I
You're right. Honestly, quite frankly, you're right. It's just that I don't like the direction it's going in just because I'm seeing it. I've been in the epicenter of it. I've been in New York. I've been in SF. I've been in London. And I just think it's incredibly saddening. But it's true. We have to push through the black night of the Kali Yuga before things get better.
Right.
This is you know what I mean? It's like, I get it,
Yeah, and then I think that's... And in that sense, I do support it, while it might be like ugly for now or for the foreseeable future. I certainly don't think the idea of a corporate Tesla city is any worse than like the city I live in right now, as far as like culture goes. Really, like I mean, that concept doesn't seem particularly like horrific.
Well, it's basically like turning like a company into like a self-sustaining, like it's turning a company into a town, basically. Like a company might have like 300 employees or something, and they just create like a whole self-sustaining system.
Have either of you ever been to Celebration in Disney? The city.
No, my family never would do anything remotely like taking me to Disney. They found that incredibly crass and low class. They really hated anything Disney. They would never take me to a Disney World. They'd rather be caught dead.
Was that traumatic for you, or were you like, fuck this?
No, it wasn't traumatic, but they were this way with everything because it was like, it kind of was, because they didn't let me watch any of the television shows that any of my peers were watching. They didn't let me, know about any of the cultural or social references or musical references that any of my peers had. So because of that, I was always sort of out of sync with them. No, they spared me indoctrination. That's true, but they also made me like this weird autiste who couldn't relate to anyone.
Right. Well, at least in your early years, yeah. But
yeah, in my early years, but it literally took me like years of like doing drugs and effectively like even more like smoking pot for like over half a decade in order to like dumb myself down and kind of normalize myself to the point where I can actually be interface with people without just being this fucking autiste who just monologues in this really stilted and horrendous way. Like I hated how I did it, but it's like that's literally because my family kept me so cloistered and sequestered off and only let me have certain social engagements, et cetera, et cetera. You know, I was only exposed to certain things, and I was always around people much older than me, and my parents would just always take me to like parties with them and their older friends, and like yeah, it's like so I really interacted with people my age, so it did kind of traumatize me. Sorry, I didn't mean to distract though. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
no, I mean that's yeah, I can imagine. I could say that I my parents are pretty normie in most ways. Like I don't they're not even lightweight intellectuals. They're like into like golf and the Yankees, but they like, make lots of money. It's like they're not deep in that regard, but they were very, very encouraging of my precocity in a way that I think was actually like damaging, like encouraging me to do things that like really isolated me from people.
So was it kind of like me in a way, kind of like my parents in a
well, I was
sense,
saying,
or different?
I became obsessed with gemology, and instead of being like, okay, well, here's some books about it, they're like my dad, like, let's go take you to talk to the gem people, and then like next thing I knew, I was like the youngest member being inducted into the gemology.
Oh yeah, totally, totally.
And walking around, going to these gems, like these like gemologist conventions, and I was like 6 years old, like. And I look back on that now as like, that was just something I was interested in. We didn't need to let it get to that point, to like.
Yeah. Oh, most certainly. What I find funny about that though is, I mean, I not to compare or anything. Like, it's amusing, but it's like, I remember really being into rocks and minerals, and my parents did indulge that as well. But really, they foisted upon me very specific things they wanted me to be interested in the realm of it was things like arts, light opera, like fucking Gilbert and Sullivan. It's like they had these really weird, specific niche things. It's like yeah,
That's not what other kids are checking out.
yeah, exactly. No, the point is they put me into like the most autistic shit for like, and it was like because I don't even know why. It's like this weird. Oh, it's my mom. Quite honestly, it's her side of the family.
Are your parents patrons at the Met?
Yeah. Why?
At the Met Opera? No, I'm just wondering.
We go to the Met Opera.
Yeah, I saw Lulu there. That was the last thing I saw there. It was so fucking amazing. But I wonder like how dude.
I just saw a nice light opera, but it was actually not nice. It was actually kind of cringy, but because it's a light opera, but it was amusing. It was Carmen, so it was Hammerstein's revision of Carmine, and it was at the Classical Stage Company. Pretty interesting.
Yeah. I wonder what's going to be, because like you go to the Met nowadays and it's like, fuck like you want to talk. I mean, you want to talk about low birth rate. Like these people are fucking dying off. Like there's going to be like classical music nowadays is in such shambles. It's relegated so purely into the academy, and they try to do all these like pathetic collaborations with like these indie rock people. And it's like, it's a wash. Like, I don't understand how the Met's going to stay open for like more than another 20, 30 years.
Oh,
also,
trust me, because there are people who just throw money at it. There are people who just throw money at things like my family.
There's no audience left that are under the age of 40 who didn't go to like.
Yeah, that's the problem. That's the thing. It's all these boomers and like post boomers, and it's ridiculous. Like I don't even go anymore. It's like I don't do like or at least that's not true actually. I pick and choose. I don't like see any old thing anymore, because it's like you never know what could be just complete like tripe and nonsense, and also the focus on trying to modernize everything and put it in a modern context, it's just gotten so like a few times it's nice, but it's gotten so hackneyed, especially when you look at like when they're doing it with classical theater, like they're doing it with like Chekhov or other sort of like European realists like Ibsen or whatever, and then they're like always trying to modernize it. And Shakespeare, of course, is always like, if you look at Shakespeare in the Park, like I go to Shakespeare in the Park every year, and it's literally like this year, this particular last one, it wasn't with Othello, but nearly every year it's always and sometimes the modernization works, but I just feel like it gets very, very hackneyed in a way. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, for sure.
It's the same thing about art. It's like nowadays art always has to be some sort of subversive commentary twist, conceptual type shit.
Well,
It's
I
like
mean,
why? It's because people don't value like at portraying beauty as much anymore, and they'll say, "Duh, because we have photographs and video cameras," and it's like, okay, that's no excuse, you know.
You go to the far right nationalism exhibit at PS1 MoMA.
No, I didn't even know that existed. When was it?
It was last summer.
I was on the West Coast. I was on the West Coast.
Yeah, it was mostly film, and it was pretty great actually. Yeah, it was. It was. Yeah, it was just a lot of really intense footage from like protests in Central and Eastern Europe and Greece.
Interesting.
So a lot of Golden Dawn footage, like really, really intense.
Interesting. Yeah.
And then like a photography exhibit. So it wasn't like, you know, some like genderqueer like black dude like, you know, like commenting on what's going on in Slovenia. Like no, it was like it was just footage of like this is happening. Very, very good.
I have a question for both of you. I want to hear what both of you think of the relationship between Jews and art or the arts.
Oh, so complicated. Yeah.
Levi, you can start off. You could just give a few thoughts. Like this, the point is, this isn't everyone's full thoughts. This is just what's on the top of everyone's head. Like we're not going to make it this big thing if it doesn't need to be.
I think there's been a lot of like really, really talented Jewish artists. I'm not as familiar with the like East Coast like art scene, so I can't really speak too much to that. But yeah, I think Jews are especially proficient at like literary stuff, like maybe less with visual stuff. Also, like the reason that Jewish cinema, or as it's called, became so popular is because it was probably better than the competition. Like it's not like they like legally monopolized movie. Like anybody can make a movie, but Jews probably just happen to do it better than anyone else, which is why it became so palatable. So I think Jews do have a knack for media, like or for entertainment.
I personally like don't buy the whole narrative that like Jews push this like degenerate pause art thing entirely, because I mean like my modern art was not Jewish before it was Jewish, and I don't know. You look at some of the most like transcendent abstract art, like someone like Rothko or something, which is totally religious in nature. Like
are you sure about that? Are you sure about that?
About what?
What you're saying about Rothko?
That to me,
this is what my mom says. This is what my mom says.
I'm sure that his work has that effect on me. That I see it.
I mean,
like
okay, I know what you mean. Like I was very.
Hey guys, I'm
child,
taking off, but
no.
Yeah, sorry about that.
All right, I'll see you in the. I'll see you in the chat, Levi.
I will. Yeah, I will be in the chat. Have a good night, guys.
Good night, sir.
Later.
Okay, David's roommate. Spurg out. Go ahead.
Well, I'm curious. You don't see Rothko's work as that.
Not compared to the amazing things like, I forget the name of it, but that phenomenal triptych at the Philadelphia Museum that shows like the journey of life, or maybe it's larger than a triptych. I think it might be like 5 rooms or something, like 5 pieces, 5 walls. But like no, or like the stuff at the Frick collection, it doesn't even come close to like the beautiful sublimeness that's captured in like the romantic art of Turner or Constable or someone like that,
Okay, well, I think that for me, Rothko's genius, especially like looking at the Rothko Chapel. You've heard the Morton Feldman piece, Rothko Chapel, right? I mean, that's one of the great pieces of religious music of the 20th century, and done by a Jew. But I think that Rothko, it's that amazing ability to abstract the spiritual in the material of the everyday, and like as far as someone who can do that, because look. To find God in like a couch or something like that is no easy task, and I think how he dealt with that material like fully achieves that. Where like like getting into Rothko's art, when I did freshman year of college or something, I saw the world differently and in much more on much more spiritual terms because of his work, which.
There are no great. So no, go ahead, please.
No. I mean, and like that's where I think the genius lies is in him. It's the ability to take the mundane and seemingly mundane and turn it into like this molecular, like blown up, uh, uh, work of beauty. When you see like this is where I got the inspiration for this piece, and you're like, oh my god, you saw that and that, and blew it up to this scale and imbued it with this kind of feeling and reverence. Maybe that has nothing to do with what his intention was, though, but it was the effect it's had on me.
Yeah, yeah, that's exactly what I was about to say, but you took the words out of my mouth. Maybe, yeah. And again, oh, it's all subjective. It is, but I do see where you're coming from. I'm just not sure if I'm completely with you there. It's interesting.
Yeah.
I used to love Rothko, and my mom's a big Rothko person. So
listen to the Morton Feldman piece, Rothko Chapel, that he wrote for the chapel. Morton Feldman is like great Jewish music that I feel very, very, very.
I see it in the name.
Yes, very, very proud of to like be like, okay, that came out of the brain, the bigger brain of like my people.
Do you want to?
I don't know. I think when like the alt-right's kind of just like overall dismissal of like anything past romantic era art is like, or like stuff that isn't like fully representational to me is a little ludicrous.
Well, do they like romantic era art? Yeah, I guess they do. Yeah, I guess that's like the cliche. See, the funny thing is though, I liked romanticism since day one. Like I grew up next to the Frick collection. I live close to the Frick collection. I know that I really like romantic art, and I always liked it because I always liked the sublime for the same reason that I liked the natural history exhibit with the huge blue whale dangling from the ceiling.
Right.
I was in awe. Positively in awe. It was the sublime.
Sure. Yeah, I just don't think it's like one of those things where it's like I think you can find the sublime in Kandinsky just as much for me as I could in more class.
Vasil Kandinsky. And what do you think of Marc Chagall? Someone brings him up in the chat. Gershwin and Marc Chagall.
My brother told me a hilarious story where he was in I think he was in Italy, and he like it was the first time where he walked into, he's like 24 now, and he like walked into a room with this, I forget which Chagall painting it was. I think it was the one where Isaac is about to be killed or something, and Abraham's son is Isaac, right? Yeah. And he said he just like broke down in tears like a baby in front of it. I remember seeing Chagall in Israel when I was a kid and not being like so enamored with it. But I
think it's so typical. It's so typical of Ashkenazi art with like the sort of like primitive folkiness of it. But it's interesting. And yeah, it's funny because I saw Chagall in Israel too. And there's a bunch of Chagall always at Holocaust museums. Like I think I saw a Chagall at a DC Holocaust museum. And of course, there was that amazing huge Chagall show. And there's always Chagall showing at the Jewish Museum, which is again right in my neighborhood, Museum Mile. So it's like
have you been to the Nicholas Roerich Museum? Total
No,
ADHD
I don't know what the Nicholas from a museum is or whatever you're saying.
No, Nicholas Roerich, the Russian painter.
Who is that? No, don't know him.
Oh my god, yeah, just he was.
I'm uncultured, dude. I don't actually know anything about art. I was just spoon fed it by my mother when I was a fucking 5-year-old.
Nicholas Roerich is a Russian kind of like, he painted like a lot of like Tibetan landscapes and these really in these really sublime and like surreal ways. I think it's in the early 1900s. He spent a lot of time in the Tibetan mountains and in India. And there's a museum of his work. It's like a house in the Upper West Side. That's like it's one.
It's on the Upper West Side. Well, that's across the park from me.
But I'll check it out. You go in there and it's like 2 floors. And it's
okay. Post his name in the chat. Okay?
Oh, it's absolutely amazing. Yeah, he was an archaeologist.
Right, yeah,
and a spiritual.
I love archaeology. That was one of my fascinations as a kid. Guess. I'm curious. No, I'm gonna guess who my favorite, based on my sort of ideological and sort of metaphysical orientation. Guess who my favorite what's it called? My favorite sort of like early 1900s what do you call it? Early 1900s Jewish artist was. Sort of like early 1900s Jewish artist.
I have no idea. Can't answer.
Sorry, that was a really autistic question. I just wanted to see if what you would guess, to see if you would assess it from my personality. It's Modigliani. It's for the same reason I like Marcus Garvey.
Was
Do you
he
know
like
about Modigliani's ideological like takes? It's so interesting, dude. He was like this Sephardic Jew who's trying to get back in touch with like his Hebrew ancestry and his Hebrew roots through artwork, and that's why he takes a lot of influence from West Asian and African art. It's not necessarily even cubistic or like sort of modernistic or sleek or futuristic or stylized or dynamic. Even it's really sort of this harkening back to this older kind of West Asian type thing. Which, did you know that?
No, it's very cool though. I'm looking at it now. Some of it almost like, yeah, this is very interesting. Yeah, I've never heard. I'm bookmarking this. Some of it almost like reminds me of like Egon Schiele in a weird way.
Yeah, sort of. But I mean, Modigliani, I think, Modigliani has some really interesting quotes, and I think was a bit more generative in some ways. But read about Modigliani's philosophy.
I'm reading that
and his relation. Well, really, his relationship.
his nickname in by his teacher was Overman, Superman. It's pretty great.
But I think, yeah, but his relationship with his Jewishness is really what I find interesting.
Cool, yeah.
Another particular individual whose relationship with their Jewishness that I find interesting, however, much less appealing, is Marx. Are you familiar with Marx's relationship with his like Jewishness?
I mean, I know that he had like all essentially, but like renounced it as far as I know, right?
Sort of, yeah, basically. I mean, it's not important, but it's interesting, you know. What are you in the mood to talk about? What's on your mind?
I don't know. I came home from like I was at a really shitty bar. Like going to bars sucks and I don't drink, and I'm just like came home and yeah, I'm just kind of decompressing stoned. I don't know. I'd be interested to talk about like, I mean, honestly, now that we're on the subject of art, like how, because it's clear that like for the, you know, a huge part of the success of the left has been like, okay, how, you know, the amount of great artists, writers, musicians that have been like, okay, yeah, this is the side we're on. And like, you know, you do look at, you know, Italian fascism and you look at futurism. It's like, I mean, futurism is still something that, you know, the Guggenheim is showing. And it's like, this is one of the most important art movements of the 20th century.
Yeah, you saw that big show a few years ago, right?
It was unbelievable. It's like, and like, as far as experimental music goes, like they were making noise music, like Luigi Russolo. And it's like, you know, they were really, really pushing things. And it's like, at this point, because like the right, especially in America, doesn't have anything like that, I feel like it's going to be hard to captivate like the minds of like young, forward-thinking people who are like, you know, university educated and like maybe looking for a way out of the ideological trappings and like, but like don't really see one because there isn't enough of a culture to like wrap their brains around yet. Because right now it exists purely in the realm of the political and like social commentary, and I think it needs like an artistic push to really get people on board. And like,
I agree. I absolutely agree. Just from an objective,
what would that look like?
That's the question. It won't look like anything because it won't happen. No, I'm just kidding. That's defeatist. I mean, I don't know, quite frankly. Welcome, Mr. Duvid. It's good seeing you. Thank you for having me on the Hangout earlier this evening.
Oh, hey, David.
Hey, good to see you, Rumi. Thanks, Babs. Thanks for your insight. I didn't have a chance to watch it over yet, probably in 2-speed, but yeah, good to review that information, have it on the tip of your tongue.
Yeah,
absolutely. We just went over statistics earlier tonight. If you weren't watching, Mr. Duvid's roommate.
No, I was out. I was out trying to be social.
To some respect, the statistics are just as important for entertainment. I used to do concert promotion. I knew these statistics relatively from there, like Jewish music tours or even Jewish group tours in general. Let alone for like politics, voting, fundraising.
We need like the base Jew musical revival. Like that needs to. Well, there was that. Okay, so Babs, as a Jew, what do you think of like all the John Zorn radical Jewish culture stuff?
I find it interesting. I'm not sure if I necessarily connect with it, but
yeah,
I think it's
you guys want to practice a few rhymes for my help me prepare some rhymes for JF on Thursday?
You're gonna rap for.
Oh, I'm with it.
Wait, you're going on Jed Duvid. You're going on JF.
I think so. I mean, I'm not. Yeah, I mean, what appears. I mean, see what happens.
What are you gonna talk about?
Probably either evolution or Jewish history, maybe like Jewish racial theory, Jewish understanding of evolution, the history, rise and fall of the Jewish people over millennium till today. That's why me and Babs, I went through it for like 4 hours, like at least half of that Jewish demographic statistics, like the world population, what countries we live in the most, the biggest cities, the different state populations, the Israel, and then like belief patterns, breakdown of sectarianism, religious opinions, all the stuff in Israel and America. It was actually pretty fun and pretty.
That's amazing. It's great. Oh my God.
Even if you're trying to organize as a Jew, if you were doing Jewish music, you'd likely travel to places that had high Jewish populations. If you were from Israel, an Israeli band hitting America, or even like a rabbi, you might do like Baltimore, New York, LA, Chicago.
Right.
Your major, and it'd be the same like when Matisyahu was first starting, or anybody. Yeah, but I mean, I assume.
Matisyahu was just some kid who was like tripping out on fish shows and like was Jewish and had some moment where he was just like, oh my God, like I need to praise the sages and Hashem, and like, but he kept his whole like fish kid vibe. Pretty awful.
Yeah, but I mean, but relatively, he's one of the bigger things that came out in.
Right, but he's a convert, right, to Hasidism. At least he didn't grow. He grew up in a Reform community, as far as I know.
Yeah, I mean, we don't need to rehash his bio.
I'm just asking, like yes, that's the case. I'm not wrong.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. Like, I mean, just from what I've read, but no, I don't know him personally, or I don't even remember. I've read his bio before, but it's not coming to the top of my head right now. I was just thinking, about the use of the demographic data for someone like him, if he was doing a concert tour, and he might be able to bring 5,000-10,000 people out in Baltimore, Miami, LA, New York, different parts of New York. If the Jewish community had more than like 50,000 people, which there's like 25 places across the U.S., those places are all prime places for Jewish music to travel to, or like Israel fundraisers or political activism, any sort of nature. Why you would care about fundraising, why you would care about these demographics.
What would a
probably care about it like for evolutionary, like migration patterns, trying to understand from the biological perspective of the tribe of the Jewish people, and understanding our demographic and historic patterns or measured behavior patterns.
Hey, Duvid, what do you think? Like a unmistakably ethnic Jewish artistic or musical movement going forward would be that doesn't focus on harping on the Holocaust narrative so much? Like what would like reclaiming an artistic movement free of that look like for Jews who are interested in rerouting themselves?
Well, I mean, you're saying you're bucking the trend. I mean, I used to trade stocks in investors, it's not a good idea to buck the trend. You could occasionally try to buck the trend, but if you saw the statistics, Holocaust remembrance is one of the most binding factors of Jews across
Yeah,
every denomination, from
right.
Orthodox
But at a certain point, like,
Except it isn't, because Mizrahi and Sephardic Jews didn't even care about this until, no offense, but Ashkenazi Jews brainwashed us into giving a shit about this narrative more than the fact that there were 1 million Mizrahi and Sephardic Jews ethnically cleansed from the Arab world, and we were treated as apartheid second-class citizens under dhimmi codes for 1K years, and we had literally billions of our assets confiscated, and we were raped and murdered constantly during the 1900s, especially in the mid to late 1900s. People, yeah, I mean,
the remembrance of national suffering, and it's like Israeli policy. Like, how come Israel and India have such great relationships? Because there's no historical beefs between India and Israel.
We were trading with them since ancient times, exactly.
So it's like, we all, but I mean, across your identity board, that shift has already happened. In fact, these surveys, like, we're Jews, we're people of the book. We've been conducting these type surveys every year for like hundreds of years, maybe not hundreds of years, but the Berman Center, where the first ones I took, they had data going back to the 1920s. Like, they've been around for over 100 years. They've been collecting and putting out this data for that long.
right, but
but whatever the point is,
I'm saying that my hope is that as a Jew, that there can be a movement reflected in art that moves beyond that narrative into something that
I don't disagree with you, but I just wanted to let you know you are bucking the trend. And that's
I realize that's what
before I go on JF, I wanted to get my numbers right. I wanted to go over the most recent data and made sure I had my numbers right. I
was asking what it would look like.
To prepare a few rhymes. So, like, more importantly, I wanted to prepare a few rhymes.
What would that art look like to you? Not how feasible it would be to get funding from big Jewish organizations. I'm talking about what would a way forward in Jewish art, music, literature look like for you? And I think to move forward, you need to, like,
it'd be what Bat said. It'd be a rise into prominent position of Jews that don't come from the lineage of Holocaust survivors. So
right.
Ethiopian Jews, Indian Jews,
that's
Iraqi Jews, but most of the Jews in the public light today are descendants of Holocaust survivors, and obviously that's one of the most significant events in recent history, and the scars aren't going away, and that's became a huge influence on society. So even if you're Mizrahi and it didn't happen to you, still from the world history stage, that's like the biggest event up there with possibly even the creation of Israel to happen in hundreds and hundreds of years.
You're not all right. Yeah, I see what you mean. I think that I just want to say about an interesting demographic point is that Mizrahi and Sephardic Jews or rather non-Ashkenazi Jews are a minority of Jews in Israel. I do want to point that out. But and Israeli culture is changing for that reason. Although there is also pushback, which is, so it's like mixed. But and then there's also birth rates of ultra-Orthodox Ashkenazi, or quote-unquote ultra-Orthodox, like, just Orthodox Ashkenazi Jews who, do have like very strong strands of Ashkenazi culture. But I find that less toxic, personally, than the like diaspora Ashkenazi, cosmopolitan, rootless, like kind of urban people who are just really very very lost and sad people, kind of like me. You know what I mean? Like I really don't like the New York type thing. I think it's like an unhealthy way to live. Anyway, sorry. Go ahead. And authentic. I agree with what Juvid's saying. Like, yeah, we need. I think that honestly, the culture is going to evolve. It's going to focus on non-Ashkenazi Jews, at least in the context of the culture in Israel. And I think that hopefully Ashkenazi Jews are increasingly going to realize, and Jews in general are going to increasingly realize their shared heritage from the Middle East, their shared heritage from the Levant, as indicated by,
So you're moralizing and spiritualizing the data.
I'm not moralizing and spiritualizing, dude. But I'm just no. I'm just saying that that is kind of like what that's like one vision, sort of what potentially could happen. And it's already sort of started to happen in Israel because there are so many mixes. Because there are so many mixes between Ashkenazic and Sephardic Jews, and they're listening to Mizrahi music. You know.
But if genetically Sephardi Jews or Mizrahi Jews are closer to Arabs, and Ashkenazi Jews are closer to Europeans, or there's some mixture, or the genes don't matter, but saying you're spiritualizing because you're assuming that the essence of a Jew goes beyond nation, which is essentially.
What do you mean?
I mean, to you, maybe it's just so given and so obvious that you don't consider that moralizing and spiritualizing, but just your understanding of the international Jew, your spirit soul, as a universal person in a universal world, that it goes beyond nationalism.
Well, okay, maybe I was misspeaking. What I should have been saying Hebrew rather than Jew.
Your loyalty should be to the land of Iraq more so than to me, or you say maybe that's not
that's not the case, because I have more. Actually, I probably have more shared ancestry with you than I do with the average Iraqi Arab.
I mean, you could see the spectrum that we saw within Jewish belief patterns, where you fall. So we went through the data, we looked at all the questions, and okay, they didn't survey me. If I would have been asked all these questions, where I would have fell out on these issues, and then you find your middle ground. You're saying, okay, where's my natural inclination on these issues? How am I more my behavior-wise? The people I associate with, but for your message, like they were saying that usually Jews don't speak with a unified voice. Most of our main voices are like entertainers or people on the public scene who are on the public scene for things that aren't necessarily Jewish. Partly why we said humor. 42% of American Jews think that humor is something essentially Jewish, as we're only 16% of Israelis think that humor is something intrinsically Jewish.
What's interesting with like the American Jews versus Israelis is like, you look at like the Jews in entertainment, you're talking about so much of their identity is defined as like, we're this other, there's no spiritual anything, that's it. It's like, we're the other, ha ha ha. Like, isn't that sad? And like, it's so gross to me. That there's like an entire like an entire like face to the world of modern Judaism is that it's like we're this people that are the other, and like we tell jokes about it.
Well, because it's the Bible too, because you're saying, we're living Bible prophecy, because like people are reading their Bible even if they've never met a Jew, and they're like, okay, the expulsion of the Jews and all the ancient battles that included the Jews, and they're going to the four corners of earth and then being regathered for Israel, and everybody, no matter where they are in the world, whether they're reading like a Bible or Quran, is coming onto these stories, and then they're seeing like modern politics, which is basically the fulfillment of Bible prophecy, like Israel and Palestine and displacement and colonialization. And, it's like, you're a Jew, you're part of that. Automatically.
Yeah.
And, you might, whether you like it or not, and, however much you care or understand about it, and you could even reject that you may be, a lot of Jews are, just don't know anything about history. The statistics were crazy that only 5% of Haredi Jews even value history as an important subject. And even among like Israel, the most secular, it was only 28%. So I'm saying 70% of people really know close to nothing about history.
Yeah.
But the people who really love it and get into it and find it interesting.
I don't know. It's like it's like you could even see like the breakdown of what I'm talking about with this like this loss of a real like strong sense of identity when you look at like, okay, like great Jewish comedian of 2 generations ago versus like this last generation, or it's like going from like Mel Brooks, who's like so fervently Jewish, to Jerry Seinfeld, to now it's like what's fucking Seth Rogen, and like this is the fucking trend. It's fucking tragic. It's awful.
But now it's also interesting to so many different subjects. Like, so if you're in genetics, politics, economics, banking, technology, manufacture, cybersecurity, computers, all these different things that cross the spectrum that it intersects with. You know, saying, okay, because like you're a Jew, even if you're dealing in a field that has nothing really to do with Judaism, but it intersects with the Bible. It's like, oh, you're a Jew, you're the one that it talks about in the holy books, and then everything they know about what's going on in Israel and international politics, and you can understand from the spiritual soul level, or the purest Darwinian historical evolution, cold group evolutionary strategy way of looking at it. And it's possible either one makes sense and has reasonable predictive value for understanding history, the direction of history, and for even predicting current or future events.
Dude, when you when you went to Israel when you were 18, the trip you said that you decided to convert on, did you go there with any idea that maybe that was your path?
Well, I didn't convert.
No clue until you were in the thick of it and were like, oh my God, I'm home.
And people warned me when I went to Israel that like what happened to me would happen to me. Somebody even warned my mother, like, he's going to get brainwashed and become Haredi. And I guess that happens. Like, you go to Israel and you really change your mindset and believe. Because one thing, you're an American Jew, so you study the text of the ancient, because you're a Jew, you're an ancient people, and you want to know what it means to be a Jew, and you start reading about these ancient texts and these events that happened thousands of years ago.
Were you bar mitzvahed when you were 13 and stuff?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so you grew up in a Jewish household, like at least you were that Jewish growing up.
Well, that's why I showed all these statistics to make that clear to people. Like, yeah, I'm saying I was bar mitzvah reformed. I'm a product of a mixed marriage, and then I went to Israel when I turned 18 and went to Orthodox schools. And then went to Pacific
Are you still very close with are you still very close with your Reformed family?
Yeah, thank God. Yeah, I mean, I see my parents a few times a week. I talk to my mother almost every day. At least, I usually call my mother at least once a day.
Was it for them when you decided to reclaim your heritage in the way that you have? Was it at first? Was it like a shock to them in a way that they were?
It was a shock because they didn't know what they were getting into, and
were they upset? Is I guess what I'm ultimately asking.
Brings the surface. I mean, there were high and low points to it. I mean, it's been a long time now, but there's definitely been high and low points to it. Like, I could probably write a book or do a few streams just on.
And your father's not Jewish, right?
No.
Has he ever davened with you?
No, I never got him to daven. He prays. Like he is a prayer. He does believe in the spiritual, but I never got him. I think when I was bar mitzvah, he came to synagogue. But like since I went to Israel and became Orthodox, he never came to pray in a synagogue. But I mean, my bar mitzvah he did. So I mean, to some extent, like I did even getting bar mitzvah reform, and my father came, my father's family came. They knew they were getting involved in something. Let alone I would go to Israel and get involved with like ultra-Orthodox Haredi Jews and go to Hasidic schools. So I mean, you probably wouldn't have expected that from my upbringing that what I would have done. But to some people, it made sense, especially people who knew a lot about Israel, a lot about Judaism. In fact, I'm still friends with the man. I see him all the time in Michigan. He's he was part of the Jewish Historical Society, and he was my mother's legal partner. And he like told my mother, "You let your boy go to Israel, he's going to become Orthodox." And there's a certain element to them. That's why I showed Babs all these statistics to show the dynamics of how different Judaism in America and Israel is, and why an American Jew who goes to Israel might completely pick up and change their life, like I did, or like maybe hundreds of people across thousands, maybe probably even tens of thousands of people across the nation, like Jews. If you wanted the Bali Tshuva movement or part of Chabad, friends of Chabad Lubavitch, or whatever yeshiva, Kollel, Aish Torah, Breslov Kabbalah Center, just where people got more in touch with traditional Judaism, and you're trying to make that work in American society.
I've been like, since I encountered like Luke Ford, General World, I've been very like fascinated by you and him, because well, his a totally different thing, but I only met people that had,
because he somehow makes orthodoxy work in the secular world where you reside. So like you might be in a secular Jewish world, and then all of a sudden you bump into somebody who's doing the same thing but making it happen and be orthodox at the same time, whatever their crazy story or background or connection is.
Yeah, but I've only met people who converted out of Orthodox Judaism and Hasidism, never into it.
Well, I went to a meeting this week at a conservative synagogue with like on conversion, and I love Judaism. Like I love converts. I love trying to understand why people convert and their stories and listening to them. And to some extent, I think the community is largely defined by converts. But if you're not functioning in the, like, converts are also more likely to come to synagogues than regular Jews. And
yeah.
But I love converts. I love hearing their stories, and it might be a certain wavelength of the reality of the Jew that you're functioning at, whether you're friends with converts or not. You know, saying that the people who are converting to the religion affiliate and associate with you, that when they joined on to Judaism, they were signing board, so to say, like to be your brother. And obviously, with sectarianism among Jews, there's a lot of converts from a lot of different streams, and the sectarianism is so strong that you might, but there's a certain spiritual, a reason to it too, that you might be more in tune to people sharing things like that with you, and you hear theological stories. And there's not too many people who convert to Orthodox Judaism, but yeah, probably a few hundred a year convert to Orthodox Judaism in America, and maybe a few thousand to lesser conversions. So that's still a sizable amount, that there's basically converts in every major community.
Yeah.
And you'll find them across the board, but especially if you're in entertainment, like media or entertainment, you might find, or politics, fields that have very high amounts of Jews in them, you might be more likely to find converts. So like, yeah, entertainment, something like Luke in broadcast and entertainment, not so rare. But every person fills a function and character, and sometimes if you're a godly type person, you don't need reminders that there is a God. And you think, because you're 24/7 just conceptualizing the world with a God in it, and constantly thinking about your relationship with the spiritual. But if you're more secular, things kind of hit you out of nowhere, like, what's this Orthodox Jew doing here? Or, whatever. And that's pretty common. That's why I showed the statistics. It's almost like a measurable experience and the reaction to it. And we even had like denominational switching, and presumably a certain amount of denominational switching is caused by things like that. So, Luke Ford converts, people like me who are Reformed and try to become Hasidic, or, closer switchings like from Reformed to conservative, or Jew of no religion to non-denominational Jew. So the whole spectrum. So I mean, if you're in a field where you're meeting lots and lots of people and dealing with lots of people, this information is pretty useful.
Yeah.
Like specifically entertainment. Like, I mean, you do this, right? You do Jewish music, entertainment.
Me? No.
Yeah. Not at all.
No, I studied klezmer music in college for a little while, but I never really played.
You never got on a performing circuit where you performed?
Not with Jewish music. No, I had kind of a. Yeah, no, I played a lot of that music in college in different ensembles. Like, one of my professors is one of the leading like experts on Jewish music in the world, and I played in his band and did all sorts of shit. And then also like worked with like the John Zorn kind of people doing like the radical Jewish experimental music stuff. And I got really into like the non-klezmer Jewish music, like just listening to chanting and niggins, like when they were, the whole idea of like repeating melodies until you leave your body. Like that, I always really loved.
You got a favorite
that.
one? You want to chant it now?
I can't do it off the top of my head. Yeah, you can though. I'd love to hear you.
You what? Give me like some pointer and direction. What type of songs you sang?
I didn't chant. I learned. I listened to other chants and then like reworked them on guitar. But it's been, I don't know. It's been 8 years since I did any of that, so I can't really like.
You don't know the names, like what specific groups, what rabbis?
No, I can't tell you off the top of my head now.
I don't know if it just
ran. I did a lot of drugs at that time in my life, so I forgot lots of names.
Like Ashkenazic, Sephardic, Hasidic.
It was Hasidic and like Ashkenazi stuff mostly.
Chabad, or you don't know the name of the Hasidic?
No.
Vishnitz, Satmar, Bobov.
It was like, we were listening to like, niggins that were hundreds and hundreds of years old. These recordings made recordings made in the early 1900s and stuff like that.
Cantorials or like Nigunim?
Nigunim, that's what I'm saying. Yeah.
Like group chanting songs, not like cantorials, but stuff the whole group could chant together too.
Yes.
Yeah, I love that stuff. Like I would whip out.
It really is. Yeah, I really took to it. Although it's been many years since I studied it, or like it's like I took a couple semesters of a Jewish music track in college.
You gonna help me prepare some rhymes for JF?
Me? Oh man, what are you gonna rap about? You gotta rap about the plummeting white birth rates.
I gave him 2 rhymes on the top of my head on.
That's what he talks about all the time. You got to talk about the birth rates, man.
I said, JF, just a farm boy with a high IQ. Now
I remember that one. I heard that.
Now he's the biggest thing on the public view.
About to be stomped in a rap battle by a Jew.
Yeah, just
boo hoo hoo.
Yeah, how he was just a man looking for the solution. That's when he came up with revolutionary evolution, phenotypical revolutionary evolution.
That's when he came up with the final solution.
Yeah, but I said what he does because that was his research, the phenotypic revolutionary evolution. But then I realized it was public space, not public view. I said high IQ public view because I thought that his show was the public view, but it's the public space. I mean, obviously, like space, like race, the public space where he discusses his desire to be part of the master race. But in reality, all he is a big disgrace. I don't know if you like trash talk it. I just think like the words. I don't know, like grace, but he's providing grace. There's a lot of different ways you could take it, but I thought it was public. I said public view and high IQ, but really it's public space.
Well, he's also in the public view. I mean, as far as like figures on the alt-right go, he's one of the big dogs.
It wasn't horrible. I didn't feel too bad. Like I ruined it that I said public view, public because it rhymed with that.
But I don't think you need to worry. I don't think you need to
probably. And I actually complimented him. Like I didn't come on like a trash talking. I actually complimented him in my rap.
No, I mean I was at work when you guys were doing that stream, but from the little I heard, it seemed like you guys were having a very respectful conversation with one another.
Well, I'd say even the rhymes were more. It was more like I more like serenaded him with praise than did like trash talking.
What do you think of JF's content, Babs?
I think it is generally dull, so I haven't watched it. No offense, JF's a smart dude. I liked his solo content more when he did the autiste shit and was stopped trying to appeal to the audience like the plebes first, and that's when I started watching him because I met him through his interview with Ryan Falk, and I'd seen him a few times before that as well in a few instances. And then I watched him on Warski Live, and as a matter of fact, he and Andy, or whatever, and Andy and him brought me on as a guest alongside a guy named David with Frame Game Radio. So yeah, I mean, I think he's a smart guy. I just can't watch his stuff right now. I mean, I smart, interesting work. You know, he's an intense character. It's just too dull for me to watch at the moment. I mean, maybe if I was like a white guy, I would really like it, but it's just, for me, it's like, you know, it's not relevant enough. It's like even Search for Uhuru spices it up more with like the variety of guests he brings on and like the rapidity of shows. And it's basically it's now it's kind of like an equivalent of Search for Uhuru, because it's like just these again and again interviews about the same topics, except at least Search for Uhuru like keeps the topics more diverse. JF is generally less diverse, and it's like, I don't know. I think he should go back a bit more to his roots. He can either do the blood sports type thing, or he can do the sort of Spurg type thing.
I think it's pretty.
My interest with him is basically just arguing evolution and the Jewish question from a biological migration pattern, view. So that's, and it's more intellectual because they're very controversial. Argument it'll certainly be a disputation where we're taking opposite sides of opinion. So, regarding evolution, well, he'll be in favor of evolution, I'll be against it. Or, the JQ, where I'll be arguing that, the Bible is true and we are God's chosen people, and he'll be arguing like group evolutionary strategy. So, yeah, I kind of enjoy having someone, sharp mind to, iron sharpens iron type thing to just wrestle my ideas with.
I'm always amazed that he was able to. Hold on 1 second. I have to take a drink of water.
And that's, it will. Hearing me and him argue evolution will probably be kind of boring. Or if we're arguing Judaism from like a group evolutionary strategy, technical, details with a lot of numbers and statistics, that might be kind of boring. Looking at charts and demographics might be kind of boring, but that's why I thought we might be able to spice things up with a little bit of a rap battle.
It's pretty amazing he was able to survive that really insane like Daily Beast controversy with that autistic woman. I was, while that was happening, like, not that I can really like, I work with adults who have autism for a living right now for a nonprofit, and
good for you.
I wonder had that been a someone on the opposing team going through that, whether they would have gotten the same kind of pass of it just being like a feminist conspiracy against them. It was pretty wild to see like such an extreme allegation kind of just be like, he was just like, well, we were in love and the courts don't know what we're talking about, and there's a plot of leftist women against me, and everyone's just like, okay.
I'm a mind my own business kind of guy, really. Like, I don't feel like it's Lashon Hara, but if it's not pertinent, the laws of Lashon Hara, if you were going to go into business with somebody or you're choosing to associate, I don't know. Unfortunately, it's tough to be a righteous man in an unrighteous world, and sin is the norm. So,
yeah,
you got to know information, like, it needs to know basis. So you're saying, like, you're talking crime and punishment, you're talking reputation, you're talking about, libertarian values. What you're saying, or even if people sin, is it a sin between man and God, or is it a sin that you need to worry about policing, or just saying, okay, the man does behavior you don't agree with, and but God will be his judge, not me, or greater society. Like, I'd rather society where these things weren't normal place, but you're just one person. All you could do is be the best person you could be. How are you going to change everybody in society? There's so many different ways.
You just rhymed. There you can go. There's your rhyme.
Yes, I'm not too concerned with that. Like, I'm more issues type guy. Like, I could do blood sports and trash talking if it got personal, but that I'm a more ideas type person. I could stick straight to the ideas. And I gave the example of the frame. I think he appreciated about, because I'm a chess player, about playing the board, not the person. So there's two different type strategies, and usually the best strategy is to play the board, make the best move that is objectively the best, not taking into regard who the opponent is. But there is a certain element to playing your opponent, and sometimes the move that's the objectively best move isn't actually the best move that takes into account your opponent, and taking into account your opponent, the objectively best move may not be the best move. There may be other strategies that would be more effective. And that's how I'm going to approach it.
Interesting. So
you got some more rhymes. So you got a few more rhymes to recommend.
Rhymes to recommend. Let's see. I'll think about it. I'll be thinking.
Jew, crushed by a Jew, or employed by a Jew. Well, I mean, you could switch the words. You don't have to be pejorative. You say employed by a Jew, managed by a Jew.
Oh, yeah.
One of the lucky few who gets to be managed by a Jew. Something. You gotta have a few different versions. That's why I said if it gets more personal, you could change the words up to the more like pleasant, complementary, serenading. The special few who gets to be financially managed partners with a Jew. To the unfortunate few who gets to be pounded down in public by a Jew.
I'll think on it. I'll be dropping some rhymes later on during this.
You gotta have your things prepared, and you gotta have. I was just taking a class on IBM TextBots. The Watson computer, the TextBots, and you could program those. You could like download and program chat boxes so that you have different answers, and it's kind of like choose your own adventure, where you could make your own chat box that people come onto your page and like ask them questions, or they could ask questions too. And there's different scenarios for answers. So if you do rap battlings or rhymes, you got to basically have the same thing, like your few different rhymes for different directions or different modes.
Is there any post Hasidic rap is there any like post Modest Yahoo Hasidic rap scene like in his wake now?
Yeah, there's a lot of them. There's tons. I mean, because there's such a big crowd of a few 100,000 Jews. There's certain Haredi cities or Orthodox Jews that have a big enough population that bands could travel, like Jewish day schools, Hillel campus Hillels, Chabad houses. And if you know your demographics, like, okay, Chabad could just be like a shack that hardly gets any people, but in major cities, Chabad could host a concert, that will get you 500 people. Or Hillel houses or Jewish day schools, let alone places where you could like book a bar and pump in hundreds of people into a bar for a Jewish concert. And there's probably 10
Matis Yahoo rented out a huge concert hall, the Best Buy concert hall on 42nd Street, and the Black Hebrew Israelites were preaching to the people in line. It was pretty incredible.
Yeah, and you could have like in New York City, you could have like 5 of those, West Village, East Village.
It was packed. It was insane, full of Jews.
Brooklyn, Harlem, Bronx, because there's hundreds of thousands of Jews in different areas of New York City. And if Muncie, New Jersey, different areas, and you could make a living at it. And so you could do a few shows, you could do world tours if you're a big Israeli band. And this demographic data is pretty important in the same. If you could attract a larger, so Matisyahu got big enough where in the beginning he was just attracting like Chabad Jews, then like Hasidic Orthodox Jews. To at some point he was attracting like half of Jews across the spectrum. He was performing in Jewish day camps, summer camps. He was doing festivals. And that's just
for non-Jews.
Yeah, then he became big in the larger Gentile world, and obviously there's way more Gentiles than Jews.
Does he still have a career? I haven't seen him in I don't think he has much of a career anymore.
I don't know. I mean, he might. You know, what I'm saying a lot of times, okay, you didn't put out an album or the last like album, you're not really doing that great. But he could still be doing things. He could be doing like bar mitzvahs or small concerts, or you know, maybe he's just selling CDs and money's coming in, or he's taking, maybe he's trying something else. He could have just like career change. The music thing went good for a while, and you know, who knows? He could be like a mortgage broker. But I don't know. I mean, I heard he moved into Teaneck in New Jersey, and I think he comes out like like a few events a year. He's definitely doing. Like I saw updates on different Jewish publications. Like he definitely is performing at least a few times a year.
Yeah.
But no, I mean, he hasn't done anything as big. His career has declined, and it's conceivable his mainstream career is basically over. You know, like that. You know, will he ever be on a big stage? With top musicians in the country again? Who knows? But like he could probably still make a good living doing weddings and bar mitzvahs the rest of his life.
Yeah.
Whether that's what he's going to do or not, who knows?
Sure.
Or like Jewish summer camps and because he was a big name. I mean, he really went further than anyone else in a long time. So yeah, he could probably be doing Jewish day camps and weddings and bar mitzvahs the rest of his life, unless he does something to really ruin being able to do that. God forbid.
What's the way forward for Jewish music, David? How do we keep pushing the envelope?
I don't know. I mean, I hear a lot of technoized old Hasidic. Did you want to sing a niggin?
No, I'd like to hear you sing one though.
I put it in the chat. I got this one. This is Satmar one from Isaiah. V'yomer b'yomahu hine Eloheinu zeh kavini loi v'yoshienu zeh Adonai kavini loi negila v'nismicha b'shuasai. And it was said on this day, here is my God that I hope to him is our salvation. This is Hashem that we hope to. It will be rejoicing and happiness in your salvation. Sound like a good one?
Sing it. Go for it.
This one, I have it on my YouTube page. It's pretty popular. This is Satmar. I think it's a Satmar tune, but like any chassid would probably know this.
The Satmars, they're the anti-Zionist, the main anti-Zionist one, right?
Well, yeah, but it's saying there's certain generic Hasidic culture. So this tune is chanted by all Hasidim. I mean, Hasidim get together and they sing songs because that's what we do. Like on Sabbath, we all get together and gather in huge gatherings and sing songs. So the different songs become popular among like all Hasidim. But like if you go, this may not be Satmar in origin, but they used to sing it in the Satmar gatherings, and it got very popular because Satmar, they might have 5,000 to 20,000 people together chanting these songs. So if they start chanting them, it becomes popular among all Hasidim, and the words come out of the prayer service anyways. And then like wedding scenes and Jewish holidays, and so some songs are very well known. Like this verse is part of recommended to be chanted at the end of Sabbath. So lots of Orthodox Jews already know these words. It's something they chant once a week anyways. And it's a common song. Vayoma v'yoyma v'yoyma v'yoma v'yoyma Ine Eloheinu zeh 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 kavini loi v'yoshienu zeh Hashem kavini loi zeh Hashem kavini loi Nagila nagila v'nismecha v'shiyusa yai zeh Hashem kavini loi Zeh Hashem kavini loi Nagila nagila v'nismecha v'shiyusai v'yoma v'yoma v'yaymahu Hinayali za 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 Kavini Lavi Yoshiaini Zayashem Kavini Lai Zayashem Kavini Lai Nagila Nagila Venismacho Vishiyusai. I've chanted that one hundreds of times.
Yo, David, you're great. Do you have any like? Do you have
if
any?
You went to Satmar or Williamsburg, like they might not sing the song every time they gather, but they sing the song like pretty often, probably like once a month. Like you would hear the song that I just sung. It's a pretty common Hasidic tune.
Hey, David, you nail those really difficult like inflections, those like tiny little like microtonal.
Yeah, and I pronounced it the way the Satmar Hasidim would have pronounced it. Like obviously Ashkenazi or Mizrahi Jews would have pronounced Hebrew different. I pronounced it the way the Hasidim pronounce it when they sing it.
Your ability to hit those like really difficult in between notes is impressive. I could never do that. It's really hard.
Well, it's from choir singing, and it might have a certain spiritual connecting with the words, but that's the purpose of chanting. So like if we chanted that like 20 times, by like the 10th time you would be hitting it perfectly, and like by the 15 times you would you're going to the highs, your vocal ability at the right times. I mean that's part of the purpose of the repetitive chanting. And as the prettier you chant it, the more likely that you have internalized your heart, that you've memorized the words, and that you've thought about the meaning of it, and that relates to your ability to chant the words.
Yeah, you have a very good singing voice.
So the newest direction that I've enjoyed in the Hasidic Jewish music is taking songs like this and putting it to like techno house beats.
That said, to tell you the truth, that sounds pretty awful.
Well, if you like the chanting, so I'm saying if you want to like,
I do like the chanting, but like I don't think I'd like. I don't think like I think that would just make the chanting worse and the techno worse. You know what I mean? It wouldn't make either of those things better, in my opinion.
I mean, from your perspective, I'm saying what's popular. I'll put it up on my page. So,
Babs, what do you think about techno niggins?
No opinion.
No opinion.
Can you see my screen? Can you see my screen share?
Yeah.
So, I mean, this is just like generic yeshiva, and this is what I'm talking about with the old school Hasidic tune put to like house techno style music. And this is on Purim, so obviously like everyone's drunk. But I mean, just like the music where they put like the drop, like the boom, 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 boom to a Hasidic tune.
What do they say on Purim, that you're supposed to get so drunk that you don't remember the tragedies of the past?
Yeah. If you could make this higher quality music, so whoever produced it did it, but they have the popular Hasidic yeshiva type songs, and they put it to a electric beat track.
Do you get totally shit faced on Purim, David?
Yeah, because that's Purim. That's what we do.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I'm saying, okay, so you're not going to say that's not super impressive what I just showed you, and you don't think that's going to sell. But what if it was really well produced and really well done? The same idea, or you think like the house techno? But I'm saying temporarily, that's what I see as a direction in Jewish music right now. So if that doesn't impress you, I don't know. The other stuff that would be innovative would be more like the world music that adds different instruments from different places around the world, or different style teaching, and tries to be like a world music, which might be, if you're going for the American style music, like the old like Matis Yahu, like rock and roll, good old all-American Jewish band. I don't know. I don't know if you could have like a Limp Bizkit Jewish music style to it, or something that would kind of be an American Jewish music. Matis Yahu was copying reggae, with a little bit of Jewish admixture, but he was basically reviving.
Limp Bizkit are pretty dated at this point, though.
He was reviving a style of music that hadn't been popular or that it reached its peak decades ago. And
I'd like the Jewish Rammstein. I think that would be a great sound.
I don't even know what Rammstein is. That's German, like old German style. That's like hard rock.
Yeah.
You could do it with anything because all you do is you take the classical.
No, but I'm talking about something that isn't like, okay, we're gonna take Jewish music and mix it with this other kind of popular music. I'm talking about a way forward that is fully and 100% authentically Jewish in art, in music, in literature. That's kind of where I was to bring it full circle. That's what I was wondering. If you were to envision what that would look like, sound like, what would that be? I can't even think of it without some other like cross-cultural reference kind of thing. So I'm wondering if you could, if it's something you've ever thought about. I think about art's relation to kind of reclaiming culture from decay, and like it requires a way forward, which is why I get so frustrated with seeing the alt-right really be stagnant in that respect, because I don't think the movement can achieve nearly its anything close to its full potential unless like an artistic movement follows in tandem.
Yeah, that's what we were talking about with Babs, like the kind of all of the above strategy type thing.
Yeah, Babs, I don't know. It seems like a question you've thought about, or an issue that you thought about. What would your vision for that be?
My vision for what be?
A way forward for a like ethno-nationalist art.
All right. Yeah, I can talk a bit about this in a moment. I'm just going to run and grab myself some water because I want to think seriously about it.
Yeah, let me show you this real quick.
Yeah.
Do you see the screen share here? This is from 2009. It's still on YouTube. Only 383 views. I helped promote this concert.
Southpaw, I played there.
You know Southpaw?
I played there, yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of cool. It's still on YouTube, that show. We might have had like 50, 100 people showed up, bought tickets. It was a lot of work. And, but thank God, whoever put it up on YouTube on 2009, it's still there.
Yeah.
And then, we were doing kind of like classic rock.
Well, do, but as you know, when it comes to art, like how many people show up isn't necessarily directly correlated to how rewarding the experience is.
Yeah, I enjoyed doing it, but I'm saying then it was kind of like alternative. So we were rehashing like a popular American alternative style 10 years later, more like 15 years past its peak. That, it's music that kind of, that and a lot of Israeli world music is like that. It's, like dated American stuff, and they pick and choose certain parts that fit their culture the most. And so I don't know where, like, typically that's what you're going to get in Jewish music, where you're going to get a style that's like 5-10 years old, or maybe a mix of a few American styles, and it'll be mixed into a Jewish type style. And so it's never going to be really popular or ground cutting because it's copying outdated styles or styles past their prime. And so if there is cutting edge Israeli music, and as said, usually that's like your world music styles where you're mixing together like a violin and African and Middle Eastern instruments and something like that, if you're familiar with that stuff. And that's probably the most popular of the Israeli stuff. But then it comes to American, it just seems exotic. Or like, what's the Jew's place? If it's just like African and European and Indian, why do you need the Jew? What does that have to do with the world music with Judaism?
Well, it's interesting. You listen to Japanese pop music, and it's so unmistakably ethnic and Japanese. Korean pop music, although Korean pop is getting more and more westernized and watered down. Indian music, and like right now, like Israel has some bands, but there isn't anything even remotely equivalent. And I'd say that's the case in almost all the entire West. Like the West is really lacking that. it's really really tragic because you listen to like some of the Arabic pop music that comes out is so wild and so thoroughly steeped in their history. Same with the Asian stuff and African music and like European music. There's just such a dearth of that.
Well, I became Hasidic. Chanting is part of Hasidic culture. Like chanting, people are like Sabbath, festivals, special occasions, even regular occasions. People are always chanting. Besides the daily prayers, getting together and group singing and chanting verses in the tishes and everything like that, and saying like Orthodox Jews, even like conservative Reform Jews, like around a Sabbath meal might sing a few songs or do Kabbalah Shabbos. So, and it's kind of like if you think like Hinduism also has their spiritual music. There's there's popular mantras that Hindus chant. If you're like a Hare Krishna or something, and it's like I like the spiritual aspect of just chanting. I don't mind doing classical chanting style without spicing it up in any way, and like I even prefer it that way. But then for the people like I don't want to chant like so if you want an exotic Jewish experience, so if you just want the traditional chanting, but that's too boring for you, so you want to kind of like spice it up in a way that's with popular American music, and you could do that to any music style.
Right, but what
Like
I guess,
rap,
but why does it have to?
rap, funk, techno.
Why does it have to be like, okay, well, we're going to take chanting and put it over
That's
this?
fundamentally Jewish. If you want
No. I don't think you're
chanting
understanding.
this Hebrew stuff is the most fundamentally.
I don't
Jewish of
think you're
anything
understanding
there
the
is.
premise that I'm bringing up. I'm saying like, isn't there a way to conceive of something totally new that isn't like we're going to put our thing on top of this other thing that isn't ours, where the thing is still intact, but there's also something new? That's what I'm talking about. Does that exist? Can that exist? How can that exist? And I think that should exist.
Where you're going to invent a new instrument, and saying you're going to like talk in a different style that no one has ever talked.
No, okay,
before,
like Arnold Schoenberg invented.
Like, what do you mean?
Arnold Schoenberg invented atonal music. It came from the past. It was the way forward. It was imbued with the entire canon of Western music history and also radically broke from it. Why can't there be the same thing for like?
Because if you're just a Jew who did that, like many famous Jewish composers and musicians who were the first person to do something with the way of producing music, and it's just popular in general, but there's nothing intrinsically Jewish about it except that it was a Jew who came up with it.
But that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that
it becomes Jewish with that new style of music. Then you apply like chanting and
right.
Your
Well, those things can have a role. I'm always wondering, like, like. But yeah,
you're not going to create something. Jewish is a tradition, so you create something new. There's nothing really Jewish about it.
Right, but so is
a Jew might have came up with it, or that you use it.
Piano sonatas are a tradition too. It doesn't mean that there haven't been major advancements and breakthroughs made, in the canon of like Western piano music. Like, I just don't say, I just wonder like if there could be something more radically conceived that, and I don't necessarily mean it for like, Hasidic music or anything. I think about this as far as music across different cultures goes.
The point I'm making is that music in general in Jewish history was used to accompany chanting. So,
right.
So if you want to innovate, you're doing something for the purpose of making the chanting better.
I guess it would have to be a radically different approach to the instrumentation.
You're trying to bring Judaism to the lounge, or you're just trying to say next time we all get together and chant, you're going to do it in this new, different way, and it's just going to revolutionize the way Jews interact.
Do you understand what I'm saying? Babs?
Yes, I do. Sorry. Yes, I do. Yes, I do.
It's something I've been thinking about a lot. Like how, like I think that there needs to be an alternative to the art that's out there that's just as innovative, but is like far less degraded, you know. Not just in Jewish music. I mean, in Western music in general. Like, you know, there's obviously like a lot of electronic music and like massive innovations being made in that, but that doesn't really take into account the identity factor. The identity is at its identityless, and that becomes its identity.
David, do you like Fash Wave?
Dude, serious is that's gonna really mobilize the troops.
Well, what are you thinking of? What are you thinking of? What when you say electronic and identity?
Well, I don't like I said, like you can listen to like really insane, you know, now, you know, Japanese music being made today or Arab music that's like still so unmistakably Japanese, but also doesn't sound like it's Japanese.
So like Mizrahi is kind of, or like Orientals, quote unquote, in like is the basically the music that's in the style of quote unquote Arab music.
They have a way forward with their music that fully takes into account who they are at all times. And
this one's for you, Babs. You see, I put it in the chat. Isaiah 12:6. Cry out and sing, O citizen of Zion, for great among you is the Holy One of Israel. Sali Veroni, Yoshevet Zion, Ki Gudol Bekirbe Kadosh Yisrael. Sali, which here they're translating as cry, like sing and joyously. Yoshevet Zion, the seat of Zion, here translating citizen of Zion. Ki Kudol Bekirbe, because great among us, Kadosh Yisrael is the Holy One of Israel. You have any interpretation of that one? It's part of the after Sabbath Saturday night prayers said every week. There's some great tunes to this one. I thought you might like it because Zion in the center. Okay, you ready? Sali Veroni, Yoshevet Zion. Yoshevet Zion, Ki Gudol Bekirbe Kadosh Yisrael, Kadosh Yisrael, Sali Veroni, Yoshevet Zion, Ki Gudol Bekirbe Kadosh Yisrael, Kadosh Yisrael, Sali Veroni, Yoshevet Zion, Yoshevet Zion, Ki Gudol Bekirbe Kadosh Yisrael, Kadosh Yisrael. The sage of Israel till today, but for thousands of years, that's what we would do. We would sit around Saturday night and Friday night and chant Nagunam all night.
Hey, Marshall. Hey, Babs, I'm seeing this claim that Marshall says that King Leopold was Jewish. I cannot find anything seeming to back that online.
This dude's like literally spewing bullshit. He's full of like,
King Leopold was not Jewish.
Yeah.
Sacrificed Jews, gave Jews up to the Nazis. I mean, I don't know. I think that's kind of a bogus claim.
Yeah, I mean,
no, this is what happens when you need to make every European person who did a bad thing into some sort of secret crypto Jew because you're literally just like some weird neo-Kang
this is the
person
guy
whose brain works in these super simple emotional narratives of sort of like. Oh my god! I mean, I get it. Like he gets it, but it's like he doesn't. It's like, do you even understand why Jews are like this? It's literally, basically, pretty much the diaspora. Like that's like 70%, if not more, of what like the problem is. Effectively,
like you look at like other people affected by like diaspora, like the Romani population, the Gypsies, and like it's the same kind of like ever-present resentment, but like without the high IQ. you know?
Yeah, no, and then you look at other diaspora peoples, like you look at the diaspora people from West Africa and America, and there's also a lot of like resentment and toxicity in that relationship there. Contrary to what some people may say, it wasn't just the Jews who stirred that up. It wasn't just Jews who were slave traders. It wasn't even most slave traders were Jews. When they talk about Jews, when they talk about Jewish slave owners, they discount the fact that most of these Jewish slave owners had only like one or two slaves, as opposed to like these huge plantations. Like that, like those were mostly white people actually. So no, there's actual legitimate toxicity here. Same also the Romanian gypsies, or sorry, no, not Romanian, the Roma gypsies were not enslaved by the Romanians because there was a secret Jewish hand behind it. No, that was just Europeans doing what they do and colonizing. And like they did to us, the Jews, when we were in our own indigenous land and we didn't want to be colonized, and they colonized us, and similarly, they enslaved the Roma gypsies, and and now you have the sort of shitty diasporic people today, just like how Jews are part Middle Eastern, they're part subcontinental, and again, there's this toxic, resentful relationship, and these things need to be healed. You can't just exterminate a people because functionally speaking, it's never going to work. There are always going to be a few people left over, and those people will just be super resentful. And then what's going to happen? And then both parties are resentful, and then the bitterness cycle continues and continues and continues and continues, and it's just more and more and more misery. It's like, is that what we want? No, it isn't. Sorry, go ahead.
I'm just like reading chat stuff, and Marshall just goes, read the secret relationship between the blacks and the Jews. I was like, yeah, that's coming from a group of people who believe that whites were created in a laboratory by a mad scientist. So I guess that's your source material. I mean,
wait, seriously? What is the book? The Secret Relationship
between the blacks and the Jews is a Nation of Islam.
Oh my God! Yes, Titan Nation of Islam, dude. Real big brain in the comment section. How do you know that it's even factually correct? Like, if you look up that book and then look up scholarly peer reviews, and you can see what peer review, like actual academics say about that, who study things like history.
Yeah, I know. It's like. There's a bit of truth to some prominent Jews having a big role in the slave trade, but like the claim.
No, there's more than a bit of truth to it. But the idea is that Jews are like
what I'm saying is like it's not the bit of truth is that like yes, there were powerful Jews in the slave trade. The fact that the idea that the slave trade was run by Jews is completely insane.
Yeah,
Marshall, you mean this one? You have this book, Marshall? This is the Nation of. I bought it off of a book dealer on the street. Nation of Islam used to set up right on the street in Manhattan, and I bought this book off of The Secret Relationship Between Blacks and Jews, Volume 1, Nation of Islam, by J.L. T. Levin.
Yeah.
Jews and Slavery in Colonial North America, the South, Civil War. 300 pages. Most of it.
That is true, is that 40% of Jewish households own slaves, but that's a misleading statistic because like none of the major plantations were run by Jews, which is where there would be hundreds of slaves on a plantation. I think like 40% of Jewish households had like a slave or two, from what I gathered when I looked into it after hearing Patrick Little spew what he had to say.
Yeah, I don't know. That's why I put in the chat. This one's good too. It's also sung Saturday nights. Isaiah. A lot of Isaiah comes. Isaiah 8:10. Utsa Eitza V'toifer Dabra Dabra V'lo Yakum Kimanu El. Kabatzers sing this all the time. Sometimes like a few times a week even, like because this verse in Isaiah said at the end of every prayer service, so it's a popular one. And the words from Isaiah, pretty generic, positive. Jewish style words, devise a plan, but it will be thwarted, state a proposal, but it will not happen, for God is with us. Kind of like even though our enemies will plot against us, and even though people are devising plans to destroy us, it will fail because God is with us. So, this is a pretty common tune. The words are from Isaiah. Kabatzers chant it, like the Kabatzers in New Zealand next to Marshall. are probably chanting this right now. Utsu waits a bit taifar. Dabru veloyakam. Utsu waits a bit taifar. Dabru veloyakam. Ki Emmanuel. Utsu waits a bit taifar. Dabru veloyakam. Ki Emmanuel. Utsu waits a bit taifar. Dabru veloyakam. Utsu waits a bit taifar. Dabru veloyakam. Ki Emmanuel. Okay, through the power of the Hebrew Bible and Isaiah, I've officially turned all of the curses that you cast upon me and reversed them to be cast upon you. I am sorry. It is done.
What were the what did can you say what the words to that were about?
It
Again?
says it's Isaiah 12:10. It's talking about at the end of day Isaiah 8:10, and at the end of days, devise a plan, but it will be thwarted. And it's referring to our enemies. Our enemies will devise plans, but they will be thwarted. They will state a proposal, but it will not happen. For God is with us.
David, who is your favorite?
It's a common chant. I mean, the words are at the end of Elenu. They're said at every prayer service 3 times a day.
Yeah.
And also said in the special meal after the end of Sabbath prayers. And so in Chabad, this is a popular tune. A lot of Chabad houses chant this even every day.
David,
to the exact tune I was using. So it's saying we just reverse the curses of all the people who just tried to curse us. You failed. It has been annulled. I'm sorry.
What is your favorite school of Kabbalism? Like Abu Lafia, Luria? Who is your favorite of the major figures?
I don't think you have favorites like that. Maybe ones that you
the ones that you studied the most.
I like the Ramchal, Rav Moshe Chaim Luzzatto, who draws mostly on the Arizal, and also, probably the Arizal, but most of my study is peripherally through the Ramchal, through Chabad Sforum or different Hasidic Sforum. Although I've looked into, the different versions of Avram Aflua and the Ramak, Rav Moshe Cordova, and I've glanced at the Zohar, but it's too complicated to say. I don't know. Favorite would be the right. So it's such a powerful thing just to try to understand, and one approach to, let alone to understanding the difference between the different systems.
Hey, David, how's your Hebrew? Are you fluent?
No, unfortunately not.
If I sent you a text written by Nathan of Gaza that's on the New York Public Library website, I'd be really curious to see a translation of it. I've never been able to find anyone to do it.
And it's possible. My Hebrew is, if it's like regular Sforum common type Hebrew, I could probably even, get the majority of the meaning on the spot. You're just looking at it. If it's written in a script I could read and is using regular grammar and common words. But if it's very esoteric, if it's like Aramaic or it's complicated or it's encrypted, I don't know. I'm going to order a course. The Great Courses just came out with, in yeshiva, we were just like history. Grammar is also something that's not really taught in yeshiva a little bit, but, it's kind of, we just study the text and you're supposed to pick up the grammar and stuff on your own. And most people don't do that. So, I've studied a little bit. So but I'm trying to improve that also. I even read from the Torah occasionally. You had a bar mitzvah, right?
Yes.
Was that the only time did you read from the Torah?
I did read from the Torah, but you know what? You know what's sad is I don't even remember what my Torah portion was.
It's the only time in your whole life you read from the Torah?
Well, Hebrew school.
I'm sure. In practice or actually in synagogue on Sabbath for everyone?
Oh, as far as in synagogue on Sabbath for everyone, only my bar mitzvah.
Yes, I could do it, not a great job, but I could conceivably get up and do that. Read the Hebrew, and not just like my bar mitzvah parsha, but if I practiced, if you gave me a few days in advance, basically any parsha.
Yeah.
And but like even with that, like I wouldn't say my Hebrew is that good. And I haven't done it for the whole Torah. I'd have to practice and study, and it'd take me maybe even tens of hours of practice to be able to spend like the 30 minutes to read it, properly. If I could really, even if I did 2 or 3 hours, it might be enough. But even like for, it was really important to say it all right and know what I was saying. I'd probably have to do like 10 hours of practice for, just that 30-minute reading on Sabbath. But yeah, I think I'm pretty confident. My Hebrew is good enough. I'm pretty confident I could do that.
I
like ritualized too. So like, the scholarship, but then like how many university professors, some of them do, would come to synagogue and lead the chanting or lead the services or read from the Torah, which is a pretty universal Jewish skill to have. You're saying every synagogue, that's what we do. And you're either going to go to synagogue and be watching someone else do it, or, you're going to be the one doing it. So it's a pretty universal, skill for a Jew to look up to be able to do, is to lead synagogue services, read from the Torah. But you could always deeper Kabbalistic meetings, better exact precision in the way you chant it. Like the Nagun, better Nagun, understanding deeper meanings, more concentration when you say God's name. Like if you didn't study that, if you become a born again Jew, like it'll become a big part of your life because you start going to synagogue all the time, and you'll see the same people in the different places leading the synagogue service and like your rabbi, and you'll get the desire to be doing that kind of stuff, and you'll have to work and study years to know Hebrew well enough to be able to do that.
Yeah, I would love to have this see a translation of this text someday. I'm really interested in the Sabbatean movement. I'm reading that Gershom Solomon book right now, and I've been really enjoying it.
I'm listening now in the middle of that Rabbi Arnie Wittenstein Yeshiva.
Yeah, I have that bookmarked. You had linked me to it. It was from like a Yeshiva U's lecture series, right?
Yeah, I guess he taught a class on Shabbatai Tzvi, and he used Gershom Shon as the textbook. And this was spring of 2012. So I'm just listening to the collection on yeshivauniversity.org.
I could only find this one episode on the Sabbateans. It was like
this is a course he taught, and it has 19 lectures, but it's based on the Gershom Shon book. I'm actually listening to that now.
Could you send that to me through Google Chat? I need to find that. I can't find it online. I found this one episode of a lecture on Yeshiva U's website.
I'll get the whole thing. You go to Rabbi. I'm listening to them in 2x speed, actually.
Marshall is really ducking this question about King Leopold not being a Jew.
Was it just second-rate scholarship?
I think it's less than second-rate. I think it's
second-rate. It's not even scholarship. It doesn't even classify as
scholarship.
It's not. I mean, it's not even based conspiracy theory.
Right. Yeah, it's not. Yeah.
Like, there may have been great grandfather who had relations with it's just alleging. And who cares anyways? Like saying, did you get the link? You see it?
I did. Thank you very much. I look forward to diving into this.
It's pretty interesting in many ways. He may have done more than Herzl. You think like Zionism. Shabbatai Tzvi was a great Zionist. He left Turkey. He went to Israel. He fundraised enough money to take care of all the poor and needy. He went to Egypt, and he became friends with the wealthiest families in Egypt and got them to donate huge amounts of money to feed all of the poor people. And it's interesting, like Nassim Megaza. Nassim was the chief rabbi of Gaza.
You mean Nathan?
Nassim in Hebrew.
Oh, Nelson. Okay, Nelson. I see.
Nassim Megaza. He lived in. He lived in Gaza City, this is 400 years ago, and he recognized Shabbatai Tzvi as Mashiach. Do you know the Shabbos Zemer Yoribon Olam? Yoribon Ulam Veyomaya Veyomaya Antu Malchu Melech Malchaya Melech Malchaya. That was written by like the student of Rav Nosson Magaza. The other way around. Nosson Magaza was the student of the rabbi who wrote the famous Kol Ribbon tune, and he was part of the circle of the Kabbalist of the Arizal. So Nosson is from the line of Kabbalists who studied under the Arizal, and when Shabbatai Tzvi comes to Israel, he says Shabbatai Tzvi is in fact Mashiach, and he's like his John the Baptist, Mashiach ben Yosef, supporter to it, and they travel together. And as said, like Shabbatai Tzvi pulls off some real feats. Like he maybe did more than Herzl for Israel than, if you put it in that kind of perspective of the time. And then he travels around Europe, and he hits we were talking demographics and concerts in America. Like he does that in Europe, but he convinces people to pack up and move to Israel.
Yeah.
There have been Jews advocating repatriationism throughout all of history, and it's interesting that you bring that up because there was even instances of other prominent Jews, and
they thought that Shabbatai Tzvi was like the Mashiach from the Bible style, not like Herzl, who was a great leader,
right?
And not even maybe like the Lubavitch Rebbe, but likely that Shabbatai Tzvi got much further than the Lubavitch Rebbe in that sense.
What?
But even by comparison, he accomplished a lot. You're saying whether it's apikourses.
Are you a Sabbatean Jew, David?
Well,
no. I mean, God forbid, Chas v'sholom. But I'm someone who's interested in what he accomplished, and just studying it from the perspective of heritage. And interesting, he was a prayer leader. He was a chanter. So what he would do, he was really like a Pied Piper.
Hey, Babs, have you ever read up on what the belief system was?
If you look into how he did it, he was like a Pied Piper, and he would go town to town, and he would lead the prayer services. He would go to the main synagogue, and he would lead the prayer services, and then he would lead everybody in chanting. So I mean, he was like
Babs.
He was really like the Pied Piper, better than the Pied Piper. Saying he in reality went to synagogues all across the country, led their services, led them in chanting, worked them up so much that a lot of them picked up and moved to Israel, gave them their money, became messianic, became his followers, and half of Europe, and really half of European.
Yeah, and it happened so quickly. Hey, Babs, have you ever read up on the Sabbateans, like what they believe that
a little bit. A lot of it sounds kind of conspiracy. So
no. I'm not talking about that aspect of it. I'm talking about...
just I don't know anything about it. I just know that they think Sabbatai Zevi is the Messiah. He was this Ottoman Jew.
Okay, well, Sabbatai Zevi, the whole doctrine that he and Nathan of Gaza preach is that there's a Kabbalistic idea that when the Messiah comes, that the categories of good and evil themselves will be erased, and so because the tree of knowledge and the tree of life become one, they reunite. So basically, they were engaging in large scale orgies and incest and all sorts of very sinful behavior as a means of spiritual salvation. It's pretty wild. And this was this was.
Why do Jews consider it bad to be Sabbatean?
Why do they consider it bad? Because it's an ideology rooted in the fact.
And it wasn't like the Lubavitch Rebbe, everything had to be within the Dalet Amos of Halacha. There was never an excuse to break Jewish law.
Yeah, this was breaking Jewish law was the means of salvation itself.
And as opposed to a Christian type view, in the end of days when Messiah comes and the robe's perfected, we're no longer going to be bound by Jewish law and sin is going to become good in something like that, which is, no, I'm saying that's heretical. So I'm saying the Lubavitch Rebbe was generally not heretical. He was within the bounds of Jewish law. He recommended within the Maimonides that the Messiah will come and he will encourage people to follow Jewish law. He's not going to free people from Jewish law. So in that, and saying Shabbatai Tzvi, if he did try to free people from Jewish law, he still was a prayer leader and chanter. And it was interesting, and I'm not so sure. You might be thinking like Yaakov Frank, 50 years after him, that did more of that stuff. But there's no evidence that Shabbatai Tzvi wasn't also largely within the Daled Amos of Halacha. And even Nelson Magaza writes books on Halacha.
Yeah, well, I know, but there's but that was a huge part of like what was so radical about the Sabbateans.
You're talking about the offshoots of what happened after he was locked up and passed away.
Well, Sabbatai Zevi was
where people like, oh, Messiah came. Now there's no difference between sins and mitzvahs. It's okay to.
No, that happened with Jacob Frank, but Sabbatai Zevi himself was well. Now they can look back and say that he suffered from manic depression and was bipolar, and in his manic states he would commit all sorts of these transgressions against Jewish law. That was like what and he claimed that was part of his holiness.
I'm saying that's like folklore. He would trick like transgressions that were weird. Like he would, add his own prayers during the middle of the service, but he wasn't a pervert. Saying like they say like he couldn't even consummate his marriages.
He couldn't, but a lot of his followers.
He was asexual, and he couldn't even.
But a lot of his followers went that route.
Yeah, because he was like the Kirov movement, back 400 years ago. He took all Jews and got them interested in Zionism.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
It wasn't just like he would go into synagogue and lead prayers and the Hasidic and the villagers who hung out in synagogue and loved chanting, were infatuated with them. But he created a Jewish nationalistic movement that included all stratum of Jews from the wealthiest to the poorest. Right?
Yeah. Well, I mean,
I'm saying there's no evidence that he was perverted at all. In fact, all the evidence shows that he was.
No, he wasn't.
But because he gathered together people around a nationalistic cause that were interested in Jews resettling in Israel and not necessarily in following the halacha, that there might have been a lot of sin that gathered around him. Because when
the treatise,
when the powerful people gathered around him for the sake of nationalism, because they weren't religious, they might have resorted into sin.
But the treatise on the dragons, the main tenet text of the Sabbatean movement, written by Nathan of Gaza, speaks at length about the marriage of the tree of life with the tree of knowledge, and that the categories of good and evil will largely become eradicated in the presence of the Messiah. That's like one of the foundational tenets of the whole faith.
I'm saying there's an esotericism, but the halacha is not that. The halacha is that Messiah will bring Jews to follow Jewish law, not to free people from Jewish law. The Messiah is going to teach.
Right, but there is
to return to the Jewish law.
But I understand that. But what I'm saying is that
esoteric like writings about that, but the halacha is definitely not that.
Right, but then you look at what happened to Jacob.
Even Moses says, saying the punishment is death for a false prophet who comes and tries to lead people astray and tell people not to do the mitzvahs. Moses himself gives the law that the punishment is death.
The Kabbalistic notions that they followed and then later acted upon are like irrefutable parts of their history.
Yeah, but saying Kabbalah is not halacha. You don't.
I'm not talking about halakha. I'm saying that in certain Lurianic Kabbalistic texts, it says that when the Messiah has come, the categories of good and evil will be erased, and the tree of knowledge joins with the tree of with life.
That's why I said Nassim Nagaza is a third-generation student of the Arizal.
I know that.
He knew this stuff very well. But the point, like the messianic stuff, like who cares? You got to follow the laws. So like these spiritual teachings that at the end of the day, sins are going to become good deeds and stuff like that. Like, and I'm saying like you can't go around like there might be some esoteric understanding of atonement where sins become.
They acted on that. Look at what happened. Sometimes with this stuff. I'm like you know about the Jacob Frank and like the stuff immediately following Sabotage Heavy, right?
These aren't my areas of expertise, but yeah, I know quite a bit. It's interesting. I've studied it.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I'm saying it's interesting. It's interesting, and they had a very, very, very unique approach to morality. That's all I'm saying. And it was rooted in that Kabbalistic idea.
Degeneracy. Degeneracy.
Yes, it's definitely degeneracy. It's pro-degeneracy. Babs, you should check out this Gershom Scholem book on the whole movement. It's really awesome. It's really, really. Have you read any Gershom Scholem's like work? The major trends in Jewish mysticism and on the mystical shape of the Godhead, and man, there's such.
No, I've heard the name before though.
Yeah, he was like the first. He was like the preeminent Kabbalistic scholar of the 20th century. It's pretty, definitely worth reading. On that note, I have to get to bed. David, Babs, thank you for having me on. David, I always like talking to you and learning from you about Jewish history, and hearing you sing was really nice.
It's been an absolute pleasure.
Blessings.
And Babs, yeah, just before I go, you never really answered my question, like thinking about a way forward for art for ethno-nationalism and art that.
I mean, I don't like that term or that idea, but I see what you're saying. Like for repatriation or like identity, basically, right?
Yeah, and I'm not talking about just necessarily even with Judaism. I'm talking about like new art to go with the new direction in the right.
Oh, I think.
Do you see that as something that could happen and should happen, and what would that look like?
I don't know. That's a really good question. I think sort of like, for me, I just think it might be just an interesting mix of like, sort of like, it's like Judeo-futurism, like archaeo-futurism, like West Asia futurism. It's like Afrofuturism.
Yeah. Yeah. Afrofuturism is super. Have you ever read up on Afro-pessimism? Like this guy, Frank Wilderson?
No, what's that? Sounds bleak.
Oh, yeah, it's a school of like it's a line of African studies having to deal with like philosophical pessimism and applied to Black studies. It's pretty harsh. This guy Frank Wilderson, though, I just got hip to. Seems pretty great though. I read a couple interviews with him, and I'm gonna check out some of his books. But the list is long. All right, I gotta go to sleep. Zog Heil.
Well, it's been a pleasure. Thank you very much for coming on. David, do you have any closing statements?
I'm eating some seaweed.
All right, you can say on film.
I smoked a joint tonight. I hadn't smoked a joint in like a year. Like a friend called me. He's like, I got a joint. Like I smoked it. And that little bit of a buzz. I was gonna rewatch the video, and then I saw Babs was streaming. So like I'm glad at least you helped me come up with a few rhymes. You talked some interesting things.
So weed is permitted in the Hasidic community? That's fascinating.
Yeah,
well, there's the idea of guarding your health, and it's not necessarily a good thing to intoxicate yourself, but there is a strong history of weed within the Hasidic Rebbe's.
I've heard that. What about psychedelics?
Yeah, probably not. Like weed, definitely.
Mushroom?
Probably only weed. Maybe opium or something, but probably only like weed, possibly opium. There's no evidence, as far as I know, of any other.
What about that whole like Terence McKenna theory that the burning bush was a burning acacia bush, and that like it was essentially a DMT-induced experience?
But that's kind of obscure theory. Was saying like
yeah, it's a theory, but it's a theory, but it's one that I like to believe is
we
real.
know these guys smoked pipes smoking was much more popular across the world and accepted, especially among elites, going back hundreds of years, where elites were more likely to smoke. And there's substantial evidence that these guys smoke marijuana. Some that's even openly written.
That's
As
awesome.
opposed, like your burning bush is just some theoretical thing that there's.
No. It's obscure theory that I'd like to believe is true.
But I'm saying that the Baal Shem Tov smoked marijuana is, maybe 30 to, maybe even 70%, maybe even.
Hey, one more thing before I go. Babs, have you ever seen egodeath.com? It's this guy who's this like total autist from the Bay Area who came up with this whole thing, the entheogen theory of religion, about Minkowski's frozen block universe, Salvia divinorum, and mushrooms and creation of religion. It's pretty.
No, that's interesting. I have a bookmark right now. Block universe determinism, the virtual ego. Cool.
Yeah, egodeath.com. It's unbelievable. Go through the whole thing.
I'll check it out. It reminds me of Time Cube in the layout.
It is, yeah. It's Time Cube and the Cosmic Egg and mushrooms and salvia. It's pretty awesome.
Yeah,
worth reading. But I'm a doctor. I gotta go.
It does seem fascinating. It really does. Yeah. David, no, go ahead. Yeah, it seems amazing. Are there any last comments either of you want to make? I'm gonna try and get some sleep as well, and then I'm gonna stream tomorrow if anyone wants to join me.
What time?
Anytime that you guys are around. You have this hangout. We're all in it, and you can just message this group.
Tomorrow is kind of a stacked day, but if I would be down to find 40
we'll
minutes.
Work something out. And you, David?
David passed out.
There. All right, we'll wait for him to come back. Well, it's been a pleasure having. Oh,
he OD'd on seaweed.
I got myself a cup of grapefruit juice.
Nice.
That potentiates the weed, man. Grapefruit juice.
Mango juice.
All right.
You can see the window behind me. The sun has came up. You see the window behind me. The sun's up.
Yeah, it's beautiful. David, are you around to stream tomorrow? Honestly, David, do you want to take over my channel?
Wait, your blue lizard?
Yeah, you can take over my channel now, David. This channel is yours. I'm going to get some rest, but David, I hand my channel over to you. This is my gift for the night. Enjoy. It's been a pleasure, sir.
Maybe I'll chant a few songs before you log out. He left. Is there 16 people watching? So pop the link in. I'll put the link out there if anyone's out there. Okay, the link's in the chat. I'm sorry. One second. Sorry, I'll try to give you some content here. Okay. These songs are pretty popularly chanted after Sabbath. There's verses that are said, V'yitain L'cha. And then there's what's called Zemiros, common chants after the Sabbath. Zemiros Motzi Shabbos. This one actually is from the Arizal. We were talking about Kabbalah. And this one, Askina Sidusa, prepare for the feast of perfect faith, the joy of the Holy King, prepare for the feast of the King. This is the feast of David, the anointed King, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Come, feast with him. David, King of Israel, lives and endures. May a good sign and a good fortune come to us and all of Israel. Amen. Askini sidusa, skini sidusa, liminesa shlemasa, kadusa de malka kadisha, askini sidusa de malka, dahi sidusa de malka mishife, Avram Yitzchak Yaakov, asmin sadig nuhe, Oy, David Melech Yisrael, Chai v'chai, Yam Simitoy v'masitoy, Yeiluni, 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 Chai Yisrael. Amen. Yam bam 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 bam. Bum 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 bum. Yada day 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 bum 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 bum. This is a great march. If you are gonna keep on listening in the chat, I'll give you a nice Satmar march like waltz tune. Yada dum bum 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 bum. Dee da da dee da da dee da da da. Yada dum bum ba da dum bum 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 bum. Dee da 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 dum. Ay ye da da dum. Ay ye da da dum. Ay, 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 ay. Dee da da dee da dum, dee da da dee da dum, dee da 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 dum. Yum, yay da da dum. Dee da da dee da dum, dee da 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 dee da 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 dum. Dee da da dum. Dee da da dee da dum, dee da da dee da dum, dee da 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 dum. Ay ay, dee da da dum. Ay ay, dee da da dum. Ay ay, da da dum. Dee da da dee da dum, dee da 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 night night da 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 dum. That's a popular Satmar like waltz type tune. Different types during the prayer service. Occasionally they'll pop in like a 3/4 march waltz tune. That one's pretty popular in Williamsburg. If any of you are in Brooklyn, you can pop into the synagogue in Williamsburg. Probably most people would know that tune. Another dee da dum dum, dee da dum bum bum type tune. Maybe like a quick one. Okay, well, this one's from the after Sabbath prayers. The Omer Adonai the Yaakov, Al Tirav the Yaakov. Hashem said to Jacob, "Fear not, my servant Jacob," and it goes on different verses all about Jacob. And for some reason, the one towards the end, Save Yeshua's Yaakov, Al Tirav the Yaakov, is the one that's usually sung. Command salvations for Jacob. Fear not, my servant Jacob. Save, 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 save Yeshua's Yaakov. Save, save, save Yeshua's Yaakov. Kol Yaakov, Al Tirav the Yaakov. Runi v'nismachi leYaakov, Al Tirav the Yaakov. Shav Adonai Yaskon Yaakov, Al Tirav the Yaakov. Kitein nemes leYaakov, Al Tirav the Yaakov. Salve, 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 Yeshua Yaakov. Anti Malchi Elohim, salve, Yeshua Yaakov. Usually Elijah the prophet is sung to after a Sabbath also. Eliyahu Hanavi. There were a lot of good tunes for this one. Eliyahu Hanavi, Eliyahu Tishbi, Eliyahu Giladi, Bimheira, Yovo Elenu, Imushiach Ben David. Elijah the prophet, Elijah the Tishbi, Elijah the Giladi. Those are places where Elijah was popular. Tishbi, Giladi. May he quickly come to us with Messiah, the son of David. So in biblical prophecy, a lot of times they say that Elijah and David, the return will be together. That Elijah will return and David will return in the Messianic eras. So we look towards the prophets of Eliyahu, and a lot of times like Eliyahu, Elijah the prophet, is like the messenger of God's will that does mystifying things that are beyond human understanding, but help bring redemption and good things to the world. So there's a lot of good tunes to this one. Sklenarevi, I chanted with the Sklenarevi years, and he had a long one that took like 20 minutes to sing. It was really good, but he had some quicker ones too. Let's do the quicker ones. Eliyahu Hanavi. Eliyahu Hatishbi, Eliyahu Hagiladi, Bihim Haira Yavon Elayni, Imashiach Ben Tuvi, Bihim Haira Yavon Elayni, Imashiach Ben Tuvi. Eliyahu Hanavi, Eliyahu Hatishbi, Bihim Heira Yavon Elayni, Imashiach Ben David, Bihim Heira Yavon Elayni, Imashiach Ben David. This is the common Ashkenazi tune. In like Reform conservative, you're more likely to hear Eliyahu Hanavi, Eliyahu Hatishbi, Eliyahu Agiladi. Bimheira Yavo Elayni, Imashiach Ben David, Eliyahu Hanavi, Eliyahu Hatishbi, Eliyahu Agiladi, Eliyahu Hanavi, Eliyahu Hatishbi, Eliyahu Agiladi. There's one more, another Sklen tune. It was really good. The whole tune was good. I wish I could do it to be like 20 minutes. Ashri mi shoror panav v'choydam. Ashri mi shenasam lo shalom. V'chazi lo shalom. Adonai yivorek eshamo b'shalom. This is the last verse of this tune. Fortunate is he who has seen his face in a dream. Fortunate is he who greeted him with peace and to whom he responded peace. May Hashem bless his people with peace. So Eliyahu, I guess, would also appear to people in dreams. People might dream of Elijah the prophet, and it was thought to be a very good sign if in your dream you wish shalom to Elijah the prophet, and Elijah the prophet returned to shalom. In Bub of Ashrei Mishra. I forget the tune. So just the refrain that's repeated each time. The Elijah the prophet, Elijah the Tishbe, Elijah the Gilead. May he speedily come to us with Messiah, son of David. The Yahu Anovi, the Yahu Atishbi, the Yahu Agiladi. My tune's off, I'm forgetting that one. Okay, this is the last one of the commonly chanted verses after Sabbath. In Hebrew, there's a long list. I'll read it in English. Master of the